Oh my lord. Okay, take 3. Welcome to Calvin Logic, where it's my thoughts using my crazy logic. And today we are talking about Avatar, The Last Airbender. And more specifically, who I would choose if I had to choose. So the rules go as follows. You can take anyone from the extended Avatar The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, comic books, universe, and explain and pick why that specific person for that specific element would be your master. Hypothetically, if you were the next avatar after whoever. For me, I personally don't really like Avatar Korra, so I will be using this as I come after Aang, not after Korra. So yeah, let's jump into it. I've got my notes all here on my lovely phone, so we will jump in and I will consult my notes. I'm doing this a little bit differently to some of the others. There have been a slew of YouTubers who have done it, and other people who have put theirs in the comments of other people's videos. But I thought this would be a great way to, for you guys to get to know me a little bit and see how my brain works, and a good insight into me as I start this channel. But yes, I'm doing this a little bit differently. Most people have been like, oh, I'll take this person and this person. And for me, my team avatar will consist of all previous avatars. Now that's in the rules, you can take anybody. Most people decided they were going to take, non-avatars as their masters. But for me, I am going to take avatars. And I'll explain why a little bit more at the end. Anyway, let's jump in with my first avatar master, which is going to be Avatar 1, the very first avatar. And he is going to be the primary master for me of fire. Now, why did I choose Avatar 1? Well, quite simply, Avatar 1, as he is the first Avatar. He gets, in my opinion, the most intimate and interactive adventures and interactions with what we know the Avatar spirit to be now as a spirit named Rava. So for me, him coming from a very different world to, say, Aang or even Roku or Korra, the world was different back then. It had spirits in it and humans, and the humans had to live on the backs of lion turtles, and the spirits essentially ruled the rest of the world. He grew up and lived in a very different world, and he was really the first avatar to bring balance to the world, in a proper sense of balance between humans and spirits, and coexisting in really the world, not perfectly, but to the best extent. And so, but he also had to learn from scratch. And even though in Avatar The Last Airbender we're told that the flying bisons and the badger moles and the moon spirit and the dragons were the original teachers of the benders, in Korra we're told that it was the lion turtles who gave it to humans when they went on their hunting expeditions into what's known as the wildlands, to get their food. And so that's part of the reason I don't truly appreciate Korra and like it as much, and it retconned a lot of stuff. Some good, most not so good. But anyway, for me, Avatar 1, he has that kind of upbeat, arrogant, um, I can do anything, I will do anything attitude, which can be my attitude at times to things. But he really struck a chord with me of how he made an effort um, to take on this burden that wasn't his, of bringing balance to the world and keeping light and dark uh, in the state of balance and of pushing and pulling, as they say in the show. But also, Avatar 1 is the first Avatar, and that gives him a lot of freedom to try new things and create new things. And when you're learning to become the Avatar, having him as a guide on your journey, to me, would be a great help. He was the first one to go through the journey. He had no real help apart from Rava. And I reckon he could give some interesting insights on the hardships that he had, considering all the other avatars had lots of other benders in the world and their previous lives to go and talk to. So for each avatar, it got increasingly easier. For Aang, I would say that might not be so true, considering the Fire Nation was at war with everybody, and so straight off the bat, he doesn't necessarily have a fire bending teacher. There's not many water benders left, and the Earth Kingdom has gone into this reclusive kind of and the Earth Kingdom's gone into this kind of reclusive, isolationist, defensive structure to stop the Fire Nation from attacking them, which means, it's also hard to find an earthbending teacher. So for him, maybe not so much, but for everybody else, up for him, I would say it got increasingly easier. But yeah, also, why I picked one for fire is because fire is the first one he learns, because it is the element that his lion turtle gave out. So when he was kicked out, he got fire. And I think also, just based on his personality, it came most naturally to him. Um, and definitely out of the other three, uh, it came, and out of the ones we know of, other avatars we know of, Roku Roku wouldn't have been a bad choice, but he wouldn't have given me the insight that Avatar 1 does. Um, and the different perspectives on both the spirits and learning the elements, but also your human world. And I think Avatar 1 just strikes, and I know I've said it a few times, that nice balance. He also has a different state in his world of interacting with the spirits, which I think between him and one of my other picks will give me a good rounded knowledge of how the spirits work, how to properly interact with them and keep that balance between the... So the next avatar for me is going to be Avatar Kyoshi, the Earth Warrior, who is the longest living avatar so far in the history, living roughly 200 years. I reckon that gives her a good knowledge of the world and a good presence. We often see so Avatar Kyoshi being 200 years old, to me, really is another thing of wisdom, but is another thing of she gets to have all this time to try out her powers, to use her powers in differing degrees, to connect with the Avatar spirit and with other spirits, really invest a good chunk of time into the world, not just 70, 90 years, 50, 70, maybe 90 years if an Avatar is getting lucky. She spent 200 years on the face of the Avatar Earth, and I believe it's somewhere around 160, 170 as the Avatar, which is again the longest, her being the Avatar compared to all the others as well. But her bending style was also very unique. With Avatar 1, I didn't really go into the bending styles, but he at least had all the basics and then could grow from that. So he would be a good teacher of the basics, not just on fire. But for Avatar Kyoshi, she, because of her big stature as one of the bigger human beings on the planet, and which caused her to have huge hands, she couldn't be the same earthbender as a lot of earthbenders of her time and of back and forward generations. Back, past. So she had to really, with the help of her so really with the help of her earthbending teacher and another earthbending friend she had before him, had to develop her own style, had to develop her own unique way of how to bend, and using that bending technique to her advantage as the Avatar. She still trained the same way that Avatars train. She still used, and Earthbenders for that matter, but she still had held those core earthbending principles and theological beliefs and stances and stuff, but she had to tweak them very slightly, and in some cases not very slightly, to adapt. And this caused her to have, instead of your normal small to medium boulders and structures out of earth, hers was always bigger. She had a harder time picking up a small pebble with her earth bending over a huge boulder or a ginormous face of a cliff or something like that. It even goes in the Kyoshi novel, where it goes into more detail about her. It even states that her earth bending, and because of the way she earth bent and her stature, that when at the South Pole, training with her waterbending master, she could pull up huge pillars of earth from this. And on top of Kyoshi's earthbending achievements, she made some brilliant achievements with the other elements. But she also changed the world. She created the Dai Li, a military-like but secretive, especially in the time of Avatar Aang, but even when she created them, military guard for the king and royal people of Ba Sing Se and the Greater Earth Kingdom. And even though she later goes on to tell Aang that she regretted creating them, that brought stability to the Earth Kingdom especially, and even potentially to the world of the Avatar, for a long time before they got corrupt and took over Ba Sing Se themselves, and more the king was just the figurehead. I personally think that was more just a result of the 100-Year War and what Fire Lord Sozin did, casting the Avatar world into a state of war. and the ripple effect that that had onto the Earth Kingdom, and eventually the incompetence of the Earth King in Avatar Aang's time. But she also did some good, you know. She created the Kyoshi warriors as well, on what would later become her home island of Kyoshi Island. And creating them was a really good force in the world, and they didn't become corrupt. And they were also there helping the world after her passing away and reincarnation into Avatar Kirk. So it was a hit and a miss, but nevertheless she had a huge impact on the world of Avatar, and so siphoning off her knowledge and her know-how would be a tremendous help to me as an Avatar, as well as the world at large, through her and me. Next, we have air, and this might come as a shock to some of you because everybody kind of goes, oh, we don't have many air benders that we know of in the Avatar world, so his go-to will be Avatar Aang. Well, no. My choice is vastly different from Avatar Aang. But then that raises the question, well, if you're going to have all Avatar teachers, who are you going to have? Well, at this current time, that only leaves me with one. But I still chose Avatar Yang Chen, the only other air nomad avatar we get to know anything about, because I think her achievements and what she brings to the world are also going to be a good stepping stone for me, a good rounding out of my Avatar character as well as my team Avatar. And the thing is, she brought quite a uniqueness to the role of Avatar in the sense of she was brought up a nomad, but she took on the Avatar philosophy to a higher extent than some. A lot of Avatars still kept their core nation, their core culture at heart, and in a way had a little bit of bias towards it, over the other nations and over the world at large. But she didn't. She knew that yes, she had been brought up as a air nomad, and she had all this wisdom and this insight into the spiritual world, but she even goes as far to say as I essentially cut myself off from that, and I struck perfect balance in catering to all kingdoms' needs and the whole world. And she definitely did. She got in touch with the other cultures more so than other avatars. She studied the Fire Nation and their cultures. She studied the Earth Kingdom and their cultures, and same with the Water Tribes. And we even know that her wisdom and her tactical mind were very, very prominent in her life, and especially in her Avatar duties. In the times of Avatar Aang, we know that still to that day, scholars analyze and use her tactical decisions and her strategic mind and wisdom as to learn and to teach others. So she again had a profound impact on the world from the way that she chose to take on being the Avatar and what that meant for her and what that meant for the world with her. She's also a vastly powerful airbender, and she comes from a time uh, before she was the one, a few before Kyoshi. And so we've also got a nice lineup of timings throughout the history of Avatar that I am pulling from. We've got the very first Avatar, who is in the kind of beginning of human civilization, and then we jump to Avatar Yang Chen if you're going timeline wise, uh, and then you go to Avatar Kyoshi, and then you'll go to my next one. But we have a nice lineup of things. But I think the way she looked at the world and the way she did things, especially for her time, was very, very well done, but also very different, and she went against the grain. And for me, I love going against the grain. I admire people who don't just take what they're told or do what other people do. And so for me, that, one of the things that I didn't mention at the start, so I'll mention now, that Antoine Bandele put as a kind of deciding thing in when choosing your masters was, what is your personality and how do they line up with your personality? Um, so for me, Yang Chen lines up perfectly in the sense that we both go against the grain. We both don't just take things at face value, and we both want to do things a vastly different way than others. Um, and so, yeah, that is the main reason why I chose her. Again, more just, she's a little bit simpler than Avatar Kyoshi or Avatar 1, but just her strategic and tactical mind, but also her more, for her, it is the air nomad side of things and the spiritual connection that she has that I want to draw from over her other elements. Whereas for Kyoshi and Wan, it would be, yes, fire and earth, but also their other elements that they could bring things into. So lastly, we've got water. We've covered fire, earth, air, and now it's water. Well, we only know one water avatar, and that's Avatar Kirk. But, similar to Yang Chen being my air teacher, Avatar Kirk isn't going to be my water teacher, for the simple fact that I agree with the lore in the sense that he is one of the worst avatars. From what we know of him, I have every confidence in agreeing with that. And I don't really want to be trained by him. We haven't really seen any great feats from him in the sense of connecting with the world. We haven't really seen anything of great magnitude or scale when it comes to his bending abilities. So for me, I am going to choose Avatar Aang. And there are a couple of reasons. One, his water bending is second best to his air bending, and he even states that it comes very naturally to him, and we see him using it um, in book 3 almost to the same extent as air, but I would argue to a greater extent. Water gives him more versatile uh, water gives him more versatility than his ear does. And even though he's very creative with the way he ear bends, water to him, I think, if you had to put him as, if you had to say, oh, he's not an airbender, what is he? He would be a waterbender. Um, and so for me, learning from him specifically water, I have no problem with. And coupling that with, I have 3 other avatars that can also teach me things about water bending. I don't see water as being the weak link for me. And in fact, if I had to choose an element, it is between water and fire. For 2 very different reasons. I like the power of fire and almost the simple naturedness of just being able to go or but for water it's a little bit more complicated. There are a little bit more moves in it, but it has a great range and versatility, whereas fire is all attacking, air is all defending essentially, and earth is kind of, you either choose one. You're either more of a defensive earthbender who chooses to attack every now and then, or you're more of an attacking earthbender, sorry, who chooses to defend every now and then. Water is that great in between of I'm defending and attacking and attacking and defending, and I'm attacking here and I'm attacking here, but I'll defend here, I'll attack here and then defend here and then defend here. And it's just, to me, it's almost the perfect element. I don't know if I would say there is a perfect element, but it just has that. It's not locked in to one thing. You know, we do see airbenders like Zahir using airbending to take life, which normally wouldn't be the case, and even Aang's airbending teacher, Monkey Atso, we see the pile of Fire Nation soldiers, but water is definitely, it doesn't have the most power, it's not the best defense, but it can do both in attacking and defense. It can have that power, it can have that strongness that I think all the other elements lack in varying degrees. Um, and I think Aang, he just embodies water as much as he embodies air, and he uses water to a great extent. But I also chose Aang for another reason. He is most up to date. For me, coming after him instead of Korra, he's most up to date with how the world is. He is most up to date with where the world's at and how it's developing, but also with the different bendings and how their styles are evolving and how their cultures are progressing. And he has seismic sense, which he can teach me, which, yes, Kyoshi is an earthbender, but she doesn't know that, as far as we know so far. And they even say, unless they're going to wreck on it, which you never know, that Toph created seismic sense for humans after learning it from the Badgermoles. So he can teach me that, but he can also teach me lightning redirection, which none of them can. We know for a fact that in Kyoshi's day, lightning bending was only just coming to the forefront. It was thought to be a myth until somebody used it against her. So he can teach me that. And there is the possibility that even though we don't see it and aren't really told, that he does know how to lightning bend. I wouldn't put it past him. The same in that we're never told. Toph could have, while developing metal bending to a greater extent, at least shown him the basics of it. Whether he would have taken to it, I don't think metal bending would have been as hard for Aang to learn as earthbending was, but I don't think, even though it is predominantly a fast shooter kind of quick element, I don't think that at the state that he could have learnt it and to the extent that he could have learnt it, he would have been able to effectively use it. So even if he did, he might not have used it that much, which wouldn't make him a good teacher of it. But he also knew how to combat bloodbending in the sense that he had had it done on him a couple of times that we know of. But also Katara as his waterbending teacher and also eventually wife, knew, reluctantly might I add, but knew how to bloodbend. Um, and again, it goes against his personality, similar to metal bending. So I don't think he would have learnt it, but there is the potential for him to have learnt bloodbending to better defend against it. And I think if he did, that would be the only reason he learnt that. But still, he knows all these kind of things and has at least experienced them, and so can pass what he knows of them on to me. And this is where I think also, you know, his interactions and his in tuneness with the spirit world would also come into great play. I think a lot of other YouTubers and other people, when developing their lists, have overlooked the spiritual aspect of things a little bit. And so for me, I tried to really make my team as earthly and elementally sound and well rounded as well as spiritually. And I think having Avatar 1 as the first and being in a state where the spirits were living, coexisting in the same world to a greater extent than they do throughout the rest, until Korra, of course, is a great benefit. Having two air nomads who are both, I would say Aang is probably still more in sync with the spiritual world and the spirits than Avatar Yang Chen, but having two air nomads just gives you that great versatility and wealth of knowledge to and experience for that matter to pull from. And even though we don't know much about uh, Kyoshi's interactions with spirits in the spirit world, that doesn't matter as much, in the sense that I've still got 3 teachers to teach me everything I need to know, and she can be more the elements trainer and the human world and cultures trainer of me. One thing I would like to add is that I would also choose a 5th person to be on my team avatar, and that is a non-bender. And for me, that would be Suki. We know a lot about her abilities. We know that she was, and frankly still is, a Kyoshi warrior, so that gives her a lot of versatility. She knows a few forms of martial arts. She knows how to use war fans. She knows how to use a sword. She knows how to defensively use a shield, but she also knows chi blocking. And I think for me, I've never seen an avatar do it, but it stands to reason that they, they can't. It's not that they can't do it. Um, and so learning chi blocking from her would also be a valuable asset to me, because if I can chi block them, if I can get close enough or subdue them, then I can also take something Avatar Aang can teach me, which is what they have now called energy bending, and take away that person's bending. Or, if they're a non-bender, just paralyze them for a bit. But she would give me the avatars never really have a focus. Every now and then you'll see that they have more of a leaning towards it, but they never have a real focus on martial arts. They do tend to lean to their elemental powers more than hand-to-hand or weaponized fighting. Kyoshi being the exception in that she used her war fans as an extension of her bending, and if needed, because they were war fans, to fight. So I think between her and Suki as well, that is another well-roundedness that can give me that edge as an avatar in making me the best and most well-rounded avatar I can be, in the sense that I don't just have to rely on my avatar powers or the avatar spirit, that I can defend myself in a fist-to-fist fight, and I can use and defend against other weapons. So that rounds out my team. Just as a recap, we have Avatar 1 for fire, Avatar Yang Chen for air, Avatar Kyoshi for earth, and Avatar Aang for water, as well as Suki for non-elemental training. Just quickly, I'd like to mention a couple from each element that I might have if I didn't choose an avatar. So for fire, I have the classic one of Iroh. His wisdom and the way he uses fire is extraordinary, and he would be a great one. But I think a firebender who often gets overlooked, and in my personal opinion would be better than Iroh, is Fire Lord Sozin. And I say that because initially, one, he's not completely evil, and people like to focus on that. But also, we know that when Lord Sozin uh, attacked the air nomads and declared war on the world, he cut out a lot of firebending practices to make the firebenders of his army more militaristic, more capable of just straight mowing down enemies, rather than he took away all the fire sage stuff and all the more less militaristic of the firebending style, which, yes, Iroh was part of the royal family, so might have had access to those close vaults, but I highly doubt it. And so I think that gives Fire Lord Sozin the edge in the sense that he knows more techniques, he knows a more rounded form of firebending. And so that's why, if I had to choose a non-avatar firebending master, it would be Lord Sozin. For Earth, you've got another classic of Bumi. His earthbending, again, he can use his head to get out of metal. Even though he can't metal bend, he still can get out of metal by using his head to earthbend. So similar to Kyoshi, he has a unique style and is just a wonderful earthbender, also known as the Mad Genius, which I wouldn't mind getting some of that knowledge of. But another one that I would also choose is, and I know that I said I don't like Avatar Korra or the series, but one of the good things from it that I think is Bolin. He is a very modern earthbender, and although I don't like the pro-bending, because I think it took this brilliant martial arts based elemental fighting styles from Avatar and made it more of a just punch, punch, weave, weave kind of a little bit. It took a little bit of the nuance, and it took a little bit of the flavor for me. But I still think that he is a brilliant earthbender, and he would be good in the sense that he's not a metal bender. Most earthbenders are metal benders, or can become metal benders, but he's got lava bending instead. And so, for me, I'm not sure out of the two which one I'd choose. I think maybe Bumi over Bolin, but Bolin is still a great choice. For air, we've got Tenzin, and I don't think he is the perfect choice. And so the only other one who isn't an avatar and the one that I would choose isn't Zahir, because, like I've seen in a couple of other videos, Zahir knows a lot of the writings of different airbenders, but isn't a great airbender himself, and that's why without his team, Tenzin, a master airbender, can defeat him. But I would take Monkiatsu, Aang's teacher, because he has all this knowledge that he can draw from, but he's also had fun, and ultimately he was friends with Avatar Roku as well. So he's had the pleasure and honestly the luck or plot, depending on how you want to look at it, to interact with two avatars. So he has a good knowledge of how to interact and how to teach avatars. Uh, yes, he wasn't Roku's teacher, but he was a friend to Roku, and Roku would have learned some things off of him. So Mankiatsu for air would be my teacher, and for water, again, we're going with the obvious of Katara. She has healing as well, which I think, as an avatar, you're meant to keep the world in balance. You're meant to protect people. Well, if you can't heal somebody, the water tribes are not, the world is spaced out. So the only healers, water-wise, and to be honest, they're probably the best healers in it, are a good way away from, depending on where you are. So learning how to water bend and learning how to heal would be a great asset to me as an avatar. She is also a very, very good waterbender and very creative when it comes to it as well. The only other one that I might choose would be Unalaq, for the sense that he, again, is similar to Katara in the sense that he knows how to use water. He is very creative with water, but he also has spirit bending, which I wouldn't mind learning. But for water, definitely has to go to Katara. Anyway, with that, now that you know my team of Avatar 1, Yang, Chen, Kyoshi, and Aang, and the ones that I would pick if I couldn't choose avatars, so Sozin, Bumi, Mankiatsu, and Katara, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it has given you a little bit of insight into the way that I think, the way my personality, and just giving you an overall awesome time to think about things. But with that said, I will say goodbye and see you in the next one.